Hello everyone and welcome to the Archetype Cards Oracle Deck Review. We're going to start out with a walkthrough of each of the cards in the deck so you can see what they look like and get a good idea of what the cards represent visually. So we're going to start walking through in no particular order with these. I will just let you know the title of the card just to give you an idea of what these archetypes are. So let's get started. First card up is Messiah. Midas and Miser, Networker, ooh, blank card. So there are a series of blank cards in the deck. So I guess you can create your own archetype. Storyteller, Student, another blank card, very convenient. Monk and Nun, Detective, another blank card, Child Eternal, Child Magical, Child Nature, Servant, Guide, Healer, Hedonist, Advocate, Priest, Prince, Damsel, Destroyer, Hero and Heroine, God, Prostitute, Queen, Rebel, Mediator, Addict, Judge, King, Mother, Mystic, Poet, Beggar, Saboteur, Femme Fatale, Shapeshifter, Avenger, Victim, Virgin, Visionary, Warrior, Pioneer, Knight, Liberator, Gambler, Hermit, Scribe, Seeker, Engineer, Rescuer, Slave, Child Divine, Bully, Martyr, Exorcist, Angel, Artist, Athlete, Father, Lover, Trickster, Dilettante, blank card, Vampire, Child Wounded, Companion, Child Orphan, Alchemist, Don Juan, Samaritan, Teacher, Thief, Gossip, Fool, Mentor, and Goddess. So there we go. The walkthrough of all the cards in the Archetype Cards Oracle deck. Okay, let's take a look at this deck. So here we go, right? The Archetype cards. There we are. Here's the box. It's a big thick box because there's a lot of cards in here. I am going to hold this up too so you can get an idea of size. The Lightseers Tarot deck. Box is a little bit thicker, but kind of a standard size. Hang on, let me get the Celtic Astrology deck. Like, it's the same size. Obviously thicker because there's more cards, but from a size perspective, I like it. I like that it comes in a hard shell box, not a crappy little tuck box, and it's got the little notches cut out here, so it's easy to open the box. Inside, we've got the book and all of the cards. So, the box, good job. It's great, it's sturdy, and I like it for storage. So, let's take a look now at the cards themselves. So we did the walkthrough, but let's take a look at the card stock and what the cards themselves look like. We'll talk about that a little bit more. So, one of the first things I look for in any deck of cards is the slip, slide, and separation. And what does that mean? That means when I'm shuffling, how easily do the cards slide against each other? How easy is it for me to shuffle, right? Now, what I will say with this deck is separation is not good. They shuffle in big clumps and they do not slide and separate very well. So, unfortunately, not uncommon in a lot of decks, and I find that quite annoying. After time, once you use the decks, they do get better, I find, but you really have to work in the cards, and I don't like the idea of having to do that right off the hop. But if that doesn't bother you, it's not going to be a detriment to whether you purchase the deck or not. Just an observation. Now, the cards themselves, when I hold up the card, the size in relation to the Rider-Waite, again, a little bit wider, tiny bit taller. This is like your standard typical Oracle deck or Oracle card size, right? When we're talking about card stock. It does have a nice waxy coating on it, but I'm finding that part of that slip, slide, and separation is because the wax is not a slippery wax, right? Even when I touch it, it doesn't slip. It's more of like a sticky kind of wax film. So that could be why. Of course, it's not moving the way I would like it to, but the thickness of the cards I really like, because look at this. When you turn it on its side, oh, there it is, almost invisible, right? So it's a nice thin card. I like thin card stock as opposed to thick. Something to be aware of as well if you're thinking about purchasing this deck. So now let's look at the cards themselves. So it's an interesting setup because what they do is, well, it's archetype cards. Actually, before we get into the cards, no, let's do it now. As we look at the cards, let's pick a good one. Ooh, there's a good one. Okay, let's look at this one, Angel. Okay, so there we are. We got our little photo in there, which talks about the archetype of angel as the creator has interpreted it. Okay, so what they do is on the top, we have words that talk about the light attributes, and then at the bottom, the shadow attributes. So your positive and negative traits, if you will, right? And this is how all of the cards are set up. There's artist, there's athlete, there's father, right? So an interesting way to put that together. So I think that's kind of cool. So interesting the way that this deck is set out, okay? So we have our light and dark attributes. So that's cool. Now we need to take a look at the book, and then we're going to get into the book to talk about the cards and how they work, okay? So the book that came with it, as you can tell, same size as the deck in the box is. Decent quality, right? Like it's got a nice little cover and then the explanation and all kinds of information inside. A few steps up from the little typical like booklets, leaflets that come with a lot of decks. So good job there. Depending on the deck, I don't care as much. It depends on if it's a book that I really want to get into. No, if you know me at all, I don't go to the books a lot. It depends on what I'm doing. When I'm doing readings for clients and when I'm doing like quick, fast readings on YouTube and whatnot, I'm not looking at books. Very rare do you see me pick up a book in the middle of a reading, because when you're doing those kinds of readings, the flow is fast. You got to go, right? You got to keep moving, which is why having the light and dark attributes on here is great. Keywords where you can, boom, flow with that pretty quickly. So I like that too. Now let's take a look at how the book and the cards are working together, okay? So I want to read a little bit about how the creator has put this together. So we're talking about archetypes, which is just kind of standard definitions and thoughts and ways we see certain things. Like when you hear the word father, you get a picture in your mind. That's an archetype. When you hear the word angel, you get a picture or thought in your mind. That's an archetype. And so the creator has really delved into the archetypes that we embrace and embody, and that sort of explain who we are or might show how we're behaving at any point in time. And what they've done is they put a partial listing of archetypes, right? And I believe, I could be wrong, I don't know if all of these each have a card in the deck. If they don't, I think they've probably just come up with like the standard ones, the ones that are that people really go to and relate with and resonate with for themselves, right? But what they also did was include 6 blank cards. So if there's an archetype that is in here, if you're doing work on yourself, right? If there's or anybody else, if there's an archetype that doesn't exist, you can create one. You can create a card for them. So I thought that was kind of cool too. I thought that was a really good idea. And then there's lots of different ways to use the cards. And again, it's going to depend on whether you're doing like a quick reading or a reading for a client or just for yourself. I'll say this about a lot of decks. If you are doing work for yourself, you can take your time. You can stop and you can read the book and you can, make it a leisurely thing and a deep dive for yourself, especially if you're doing things like shadow work. Something that I've been considering lately and pulling together some information on. So I'm going to be looking for some more in-depth decks and interpretations as I do my own shadow work. So that's a kind of cool thing to think about as well. Look at your own archetypes, right? But in a regular reading, they also have some quick phrases and notes for each of the archetypes for the cards they put together. So let's find one and we'll read it, okay? So here we go. Cool card. This is Mystic. So on the card it says light attribute is revels in intimate union with the divine. Beautiful. And the shadow attribute says delusional rapport with the divine. Okay, so you can see the opposite ends of the pole there. Even though it's the same thing, we're talking about a mystic. Here's what one side of the mystic looks like, and here's what the other could look like. So when we look at Mystic, let's find Mystic. It's the page that I was looking for. Here we go, right over here. And so under Mystic, as a description, it says renunciate. And then the phrases that come along with it, we have follow selfless path of practice to achieve union with the divine or a state of enlightenment that manifests as service to others. Beautiful. I really like that description too. I think it's really good. Then next it says consistently places inner knowledge above material concerns. Excellent. And then shadow mystic manifests as self-importance, an egocentric concern for one's spiritual progress to the exclusion of others and taking advantage of disciples for economic or sexual benefits. Yeah, that's being shady, right? And then it says, ask yourself if you have a lifelong devotion to exploring your relationship with the divine and are ready to pay the price in blood, sweat, and tears. So there we go. So that's some information that you can use when interpreting the meaning of this Mystic card, this particular archetype. So I think that gives you an idea of how the cards work and the flow of information depending on whether you choose to work with this deck or not, and how you choose to work with it, right? So, kind of cool. I didn't know what this deck was about until I purchased it and then started grabbing it to do the review. I think I tried using it once and I found it a little bit disjointed. Like I couldn't quite, I could kind of get the meaning, but kind of not. But I see that if you take the time to learn the archetypes, right? Yeah, you can do a quick read off of what's on the cards, but if you did do a deep dive, I think you'd find some really good information in here. So, shadow work, deep dives, I think it might be a valuable deck to have. So, what are my final thoughts on the Archetype Cards Oracle deck? I am going to give this deck a... I'm torn. I'm gonna give it a 7. I'm going to give it a 7. I was gonna give it a 6, but I'm being kinder because it is a good and valuable deck. You can work with it quite quickly and easily with using the descriptions on the front, right? Is this a deck I would use like for quick readings and stuff? I don't think I would reach for it a lot, mostly because honestly, I'm not fond of the cardstock. I know it might take time to break in, but I have so many other decks that I could reach for. Maybe once I break this in, I would. I don't know, but yeah, the quality of the cards, even though they're nice and thin and you can tell they're good quality cards, it's that slip, slide, and separation that I'm not terribly thrilled with. But everything else about it I kind of like. So, you know what? I'll give it a solid 7. Yeah, I think I would give this deck a 7. If you're interested in working with archetypes and incorporating it into your readings, or even doing some personal work, I think it would be a valuable thing. It's kind of fun and very interesting to work with the archetypes too. So there we go, Archetype cards. And if you're interested in purchasing it, I now have some Amazon affiliate links, which are in the description box below. So if you're purchasing in the US or Canada, I have a link for each of those. And yeah, beware of this, that if you do use one of my links to purchase anything, I could earn a commission on that, and I have to put that out there. That's my disclaimer. So, yeah, let me know what you think. Do you own this deck? If you do, let me know your thoughts. I'd like to know how you use it and what you really like about this deck. And if you've been thinking about purchasing it, what do you think of the review? Has this helped sway you? And overall, what do you think of the review, right? So I hope you enjoyed it. And yeah, good luck if you do buy the deck. So we're going to leave it there. And until I see you again, much love and light, health and wellness, peace and prosperity. Take care. Bye.